Local support for a portion of today's programming is provided by the Las Cruces Sun News, providing local, regional, national, and world news information, including daily events in the southern New Mexico area. The Las Cruces Sun News is also available online at lcsun-news.com.
Tonight on News 22.
The borderland is catching national attention after President Trump's rally in El Paso last night.
The president is deciding whether he'll shut down the government again.
And a drug kingpin is now looking at life in prison.
All that and more on News 22 Tuesday.
Serving southern New Mexico, this is the award-winning KRWG-TV News 22, where news matters.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Mendez.
And I'm Adon Contreras.
President Donald Trump is back in Washington, D.C. after a visit in the borderland yesterday. Thousands of people gathered to hear him speak at the El Paso County Coliseum.
Reporter Alyssa Tellez was there and had a first-hand look at the hours leading up to the rally.
The answer is no, I'm not. I'm not happy. We're working very hard.
President Trump not pleased with the current border security funding deal, but not entirely rejecting the idea of signing it.
I don't think you're going to see a shutdown.
On Monday night, after a weekend impasse, Top Hill negotiators said they'd reached a compromise.
We reached an agreement in principle.
But one that falls well short of President Trump's $5.7 billion ask for a border wall. And also shy of funds proposed in a Senate package last year. The bipartisan agreement includes, among other items, $1.375 billion for barrier funding, prohibiting the use of concrete walls to cover roughly 55 miles of new barrier.
This is a compromise. No one got everything they wanted.
The goal now, get legislation moving through Congress.
I look forward to reviewing the full text as soon as possible and hope the Senate can act on this legislation in short order.
Even if he does sign off on the bill to avoid another government shutdown, President Trump hinted he's looking at other options for the border wall funds.
We're building the wall, and we're using other methods other than this, and in addition to this.
That could include executive orders or the declaration of a national emergency, actions that will likely prompt legal challenges. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
We will have more from last night's rally coming up later in the show. President Trump and the El Paso mayor are at each other's necks again. In his rally last night, the president stated that people were, quote, full of crap if they think a border fence has not decreased crime for the city. The FBI statistics show the crime rate dropped 62% from 1993 to 2007 before the fence was put up in 2008. While
many El Pasoans were out in support of Trump, a strong group of Democratic supporters met to support one of the city's own. It was the March for Truth led by former Texas Senate candidate Beto O'Rourke.
With many Democratic leaders declaring a race for the White House in 2020, many anticipated if O'Rourke would take this opportunity to announce his candidacy. News 22's Javier Gutierrez reports.
The borderland has likely never seen a day like this. A sitting president visiting El Paso, while thousands gathered at the same time to protest his policies. Some who don't even live here.
Well, we're vacationing, actually. My wife and I, we're from Canada, from Calgary, Alberta, and we're in Las Cruces, and we heard about this, and we thought definitely we're coming down to support the people of El Paso.
The March for Truth was organized by 50 local groups. It was part of a pushback to the president who falsely claimed El Paso was one of the most dangerous cities in the country before the fence was built. It was O'Rourke's first event in El Paso since losing his race for Senate. He said it's not a wall that makes El Paso safe.
We will not believe that walls can or should keep them out. Instead, we welcome them with open arms. This, the wealthiest, the most powerful country on the face of the planet.
While exact numbers are hard to come by, some estimates are that the protest attracted at least as many or maybe more than the Trump rally.
It's not surprising how many people have shown up today, tonight, versus the other rally. It's pretty great how many people decided to come over here instead of the other rally.
And there was also talk about the next presidential election.
With Beto, I hope he puts his name in. I think he'd be an excellent president.
While O'Rourke didn't announce his presidential candidacy, he says he'll announce his intentions by the end of the month. Javier Gutierrez, News 22.
One of New Mexico's members of Congress agrees with Beto O'Rourke. Representative Deb Holland of Albuquerque says the priority should be people.
I just came from the border in El Paso. It's a safe and secure border. There are so many things that they need other than a wall. I just feel that the concern for Democrats is the families. And they don't want us to separate families any longer. They don't want the government to mistreat these folks who are coming to flee, danger and violence in their own countries.
She says President Trump just doesn't understand the culture of the southwestern border.
So I think just when we thought it was going to warm up, it's still super cold outside.
I know, it doesn't look like it's going to change. And Christian is next with a first look at weather.
Thanks, Adam. This is Christian Cerveño with your current conditions. Taking a look outside, skies are currently clear with a temperature at 55 degrees. Winds coming in from the southeast at 5 miles per hour. Humidity is currently at 17% with the dew point reading at 4 degrees. Finally, our barometer reads at 30.18 inches. Taking a look at today's temperatures, we did have a high of 59 degrees with an average this time of year at 62 degrees, and we did wake up to an overnight low of 32 degrees. Throwing it back to record temps, back in 1962, we did experience a record high of 79 degrees, and way back in 1965, we did experience a record low of 16 degrees. Now, we didn't experience any precipitation today, leaving our yearly rainfall at 0.06 inches. Now, don't go anywhere. I'll be back later with your national forecast. For now, back to the desk.
With just days to go before a crucial government funding deadline, President Trump isn't happy with the bipartisan compromise on border security.
But Trump also says he's weighing some options in terms of how to fund his proposed border wall. Karen Kefa has the latest from Washington.
A sea of red MAGA hats gathered outside the El Paso County Coliseum to welcome President Donald Trump. Flags were waving high over the Franklin Mountains as the president kicked off his first campaign rally of 2019 for next year's election.
It's a surprise with him, so you never know what he's going to say or do.
Trump rolled out a new "Finish the Wall" slogan.
Many Trump supporters I spoke with say immigration is a critical issue, and with the border just across the way, they believe Trump has a solution to the problem that hits home, and that is to finish the wall.
The president repeated his disproven claim that El Paso crime declined only after the border fence was built.
I heard the same thing from the fake news. They said, oh, crime actually stayed the same. Didn't stay the same, went way down.
One El Pasoan says she has seen the violence firsthand.
You know, having family in law enforcement, border patrol, I know what they're faced with.
I'm a first generation. I came in with my mother at about 2 years old, so I'm an early immigrant.
Belt says he welcomes immigrants, but only if they come to the country legally.
But you prefer people to come in the correct way instead of...
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. My mother had to wait 2 years, even though my father was in the U.S. military. She had to wait 2 years before she was able to come to this country with me.
President Trump mirrored Belt's concerns, saying he welcomes legal immigrants as well.
That's why I want people to come in to our country, but they have to come in legally and they have to come in through merit.
With the February 15th deadline for shutting down the government looming, the border wall still remains a possibility, and one many are rooting for. Alyssa Tejas, News 22.
New Mexico lawmakers are tackling the issues surrounding the legalization of marijuana. They're debating issues concerning workplace safety, the impact on medical cannabis, and how to measure if drivers are under the influence. It would allow adults 21 and over to smoke or consume cannabis. In order for the bill to become law, it will need to pass through multiple committees in both legislative chambers. It passed its first committee last Saturday. Are you thinking of adding solar to your home, farm, or business? New Mexico lawmakers want to make it easier for you. A bill was introduced today that reinstates a tax credit that will cover 10% of installation costs. The state wants to make solar more accessible and help boost the green industry by creating new jobs. New Mexico ranks second in the nation for solar potential thanks to its sunny days and higher elevation.
A new poll shows New Mexicans are in favor of increased taxes on corporations. The revenue would be used primarily for education, public services, and infrastructure. The poll was done by the group New Mexico Voices for Children. It indicates voters also support an increase of taxes on the wealthy, and that New Mexicans want the money to go back to the communities and their family.
Stay tuned, Christian will be back with your national forecast.
But first, a notorious drug lord is receiving his fateful sentencing. More on that when News 22 continues.
This season, PBS honors Black history, exploring the roots.
I feel like I come from greatness. Wow, it's humbling.
The stories.
Oh my goodness.
It is a remarkable piece of history. And the legacy of the African American experience.
It was quite a deal to have a black man singing country music.
Sammy Davis Jr.'s whole life was about confronting obstacles.
See these stories and more.
The KRWG Music Spotlight promotes local talent who perform their own songs. Singer-songwriters and bands with a half hour of original music perform a mini concert in our studios. If you're interested in being on the show, email us at feedback@nmsu.edu and make sure to include a link to your music in the email. Watch the KRWG Music Spotlight anytime in the local TV section at krwg.org.
Welcome back. You're watching News 22 Tuesday,
where news matters.
The verdict is back in the case of notorious drug kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Guzman.
Guzman was found guilty on all charges for his actions while running the Sinaloa cartel. Camila Bernal is outside the courtroom with more.
56 witnesses and 200 hours of testimony, the jury decided Joaquin El Chapo Guzman's fate and found him guilty. According to witnesses, Guzman ordered multiple executions, engaged in bribery, and even committed murder. The jury heard wiretaps and saw text messages provided by a technical analyst that Guzman hired to insert spyware on his associates' phones. Witnesses also testified the cartel used tunnels and even submarines to smuggle tons of drugs into the U.S. Even El Chapo's lawyer said millions in bribes were paid to former Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto, who denied receiving money from El Chapo. All of it shedding light on the massive operating capability of the Sinaloa cartel. Guzman is notorious for his prison escapes from Mexican facilities, once in 2001 and another time in 2015. As a result of this raid, he was recaptured in 2016 by Mexican authorities and extradited to the United States to face federal charges. One of the most high-profile drug cases in U.S. history is now over. Guzman is expected to be sentenced to life. In New York, I'm Camila Bernal reporting.
A man is under arrest accused of pointing a gun and demanding money from an employee at a local Circle K. 23-year-old Anthony Dean Malone is charged with 1 count of armed robbery. The 23-year-old was taken into custody at the Doña Ana County Detention Center and is being held without bond. The names of over 30 clergy members accused of sexual abuse are now in the public eye. The Roman Catholic Diocese of Las Cruces wants to account for past mistakes and establish policies that will protect church members and minors. They have also created a review board for every sexual misconduct complaint received. The church says it's committed to preventing future misconduct and ensuring all victims are treated justly.
Time to lace up your workout shoes and head out to the Hadley Complex. Las Cruces citizens gathered last week to cut the ribbon on the new outdoor fitness court at the Hadley Complex. The $110,000 court is the first outdoor bodyweight circus training facility. Parks and Recreation staff gave a circuit demonstration to show how the equipment works. Las Cruces is the first city in New Mexico to be a part of the National Fitness Campaign, and the fitness court is just the first step. Teen tobacco use has skyrocketed over the last year, creating the single biggest jump since 1999.
And experts are blaming the vaping fad for the extreme rise. Meredith has more on this alarming trend in today's Health Minute.
E-cigarettes have become so popular. Any progress in combating teen tobacco use over the past few years has been erased. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the number of teen tobacco users increased by 1.3 million from 2017 to 2018. The report points out a big contributor to that rise is e-cigarette giant Juul. Its products dominate more than 70% of the market. The company has come under fire recently for ad campaigns critics say are geared towards teens. In a statement Monday, Juul said they stopped selling flavored Juul pods in retail stores and are, quote, committed to fighting underage use of vaping products. 20% of high school students, about 5% of middle school students surveyed, say they vaped at least once in the last month. Also increasing was the overall frequency of teen tobacco use. For today's Health Minute, I'm Meredith Wood.
So I saw the northeast part of the country has been hit with some massive snowfall recently.
I couldn't even imagine. I'm ready for the warm temperatures. Christian is next with your next look at national weather.
Now it's time to take a look at our national forecast. In my first map, we'll take a look at the estimated snowfall this evening in the eastern portion of the United States. As we can see here, demonstrated by the dark blue area, they will be experiencing heavy amounts of snowfall, anywhere from 12 to 18 inches. And as we move down south, Albany will be experiencing anywhere from 10 to 12 inches. And finally, places like New York and Pittsburgh will experience anywhere from 2 to 3 inches of snowfall. Not only will it bring snow, it will bring harsh gusts of wind and heavy ice as well. In my next map, we'll take a look at the effects the storm will have on cities in this region. As we can see here, there will be many power outages throughout this area, with the heaviest cities being affected being Chicago and Detroit. In addition to that, in Scranton and the areas in orange, they will be having some regional power outages as well. Now finally, Buffalo will experience localized outages, so make sure to keep those phones charged to make sure that you keep in touch with the weather systems that will be sent out this evening. Now in my final map, we'll take a look at a smaller storm that's making its way across the Midwest United States. This area in green is going to be experiencing 2 to 4 inches of rain this evening. Not only will it bring flash flooding, but it will bring reduced visibility, travel disruptions, and most importantly, thunder. So make sure to keep those loved ones inside so everyone stays safe. We'll be right back right after this short break. You're watching News 22 on Tuesday.
Fresh Air with Terry Gross, weekday mornings at 11 on 90.7 FM and streaming live on KRWG.org.
A new generation of rockets is on the launch pad.
The most powerful rocket ever made.
Pushing the boundaries.
We're all explorers, going further than we've ever gone before.
Rise of the Rockets on Nova.
Wednesday at 8 p.m. on KRWG-Public Media.
Think Wednesday on PBS for stories from the world around us. Stories from the age of Vikings.
They were renowned as warriors and pirates.
A bold new era.
This is the next evolution in manned space exploration.
And seizing power.
The moon created a hyper-militarized state.
For stories that get you closer to life. Think Wednesday
on KRWG Public Media.
Welcome back. You're watching News 22. Taking a look at New Mexico now, temperatures in Farmington will be at 38 degrees, Santa Fe at a chilly 36 degrees, Clovis at 45 degrees, Roswell at 49 degrees, here in Las Cruces at 55 degrees, and finally Deming at 48 degrees. Taking a look at expected temperatures for tomorrow, Farmington will be at 51 degrees, Santa Fe will be at 50 degrees as well, Albuquerque at 55 degrees, Clovis at 65 degrees, Ruidoso at 56 degrees, and finally Deming at 66 degrees. Taking a look at our neighboring cities, Alamogordo will have partly cloudy skies this evening with a low of 28 and a high tomorrow of 64 with mostly cloudy skies. Moving into Truth or Consequences, they will be experiencing partly cloudy skies this evening with a low of 32 and a high of 65 tomorrow with mostly cloudy skies as well. Next, in Silver City, they will have partly cloudy skies as well, with a low of 27 degrees and a high at 58 tomorrow, with partly cloudy skies. Finally, here in the city of Las Cruces, we will have partly cloudy skies this evening and partly cloudy skies tomorrow, with a low of 38 and a high tomorrow of 67. Now make sure to stay tuned. I'll be back later with your 5-day forecast. For now, back to the desk.
Children left to die in a Texas home.
That's the first story in tonight's Southwest Minute.
Texas deputies rescued 4 children at a home near Rome, Texas on Tuesday. They say the children were malnourished, covered in waste, and 2 of them were found in dog kennels. Deputies say there was food inside the home, but it was locked up so the children couldn't reach it. The 2 adults, Andrew Fibula and Paige Harkings, were charged with 4 counts of child endangerment. Educators in the Denver's public school system have walked off the job in the first teacher strike in 25 years. Monday's walkout comes after more than a year of failed negotiations between the Denver Classroom Teachers Association and the Denver Public Schools. The teachers union argues that base pay is low and educators are forced to take additional jobs to afford living in Denver. Denver Public Schools says all of the city's public schools will be open on Monday, but will be staffed by substitutes and other personnel. Retired NASA astronaut Mark Kelly is running for U.S. Senate in Arizona. He announced his campaign in a Twitter post Tuesday, calling it his next mission. He said his campaign will focus on affordable health care, job growth, and climate change. Kelly is the husband of former Democratic Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, who survived a shooting in 2011. For today's Southwest Minute, I'm Amanda Adame.
Well, the New Mexico State softball team had a big win this past weekend.
You know what? I think they're going to go far. They're doing good. They're doing really good.
Yes, they are.
Kristen Mistretta is next with sports.
Thanks to Dawn and Stephanie. Coming up in sports, find out how both basketball teams did this weekend. We'll be right back with News 22 Sports.
Variety Studio Actors on Actors invites you to listen in on the most compelling stories behind the year's most buzzed about acting performances.
Even with comedies, I always think about what breaks their heart.
Do you know what my worst nightmare is? Singing and having that moment where your voice goes, ah.
With Melissa McCarthy and Lupita Nyong'o, Timothy Chalamet and Emma Stone, and Emily Blunt and Hugh Jackman.
Thursday at 9 p.m.
Variety Studio Actors on Actors takes you behind the scenes with Hollywood's brightest stars.
I'm living my truth through my work.
I like reading the script, I'm like, oh man, this is incredible.
That movie broke so many glass ceilings.
Featuring John Krasinski and Rosamund Pike, Michael B. Jordan and Charlize Theron, and Maggie Gyllenhaal and Regina King.
Thursday at 9:30 p.m.
This is KRWG-TV News 22 Sports.
Welcome back. It's time to kick it with Kristen. The men's basketball team is back from a weekend on the road. The footage you're watching is from a previous game this season. The Aggies were able to win 2 conference games, beating CSU Bakersfield and Grand Canyon University. Both games were close, but the CSU Bakersfield game was a nail-biter. Trevelyan Queen shot the game-winning 3-pointer, which gave the Aggies the 71-70 victory. The Aggies then beat the Lopes on Saturday 67-64. Their next game is a home game on Thursday against Utah Valley. The women's basketball team is also coming off of a weekend full of wins. The Aggies defeated both CSU Bakersfield and Grand Canyon University. They were able to blow both teams out of the water. NMSU defeated the Roadrunners 61-48 and crushed the Lopes 81-52. The Aggies will be playing another WAC rival in their next game on Thursday versus Utah Valley. Brooke Salas is celebrating another WAC Weekly honor. Salas was named WAC Player of the Week after averaging 23 points and 15 rebounds in 2 games over the weekend. This is Brooke's 10th weekly honor of her career and 4th weekly honor of the year. Salas is on pace to finish her career in 2nd place on the New Mexico State's all-time scoring list. The softball team is now 4-0 on the season after a great performance at the New Mexico State Invitational. In their first game, the Aggies took down Creighton 11-4. They then beat their I-25 rivals, the UNM Lobos, 9-8. In their second game on Saturday, they took down UTEP 12-3, and in the tournament finale on Sunday, the Aggies defeated Creighton in 5 innings, 9-1. The men's golf team just finished play at the Pro Compression Invitational. The Aggies placed 5th with a total score of 909. California took home first place with a score of 843. The Aggies' next tournament will be in Houston for the All-American Intercollegiate on February 17th through the 19th. And that's all for sports tonight. Join us for more sports action tomorrow. Still ahead on News 22, Christian will be back to take a look at your 5-day forecast. But first, roses are red, these pandas are too. What's this North Carolina Zoo have in store for you? More on that on News 22.
Experience the natural world of the North Atlantic through the eyes of the Vikings. Without map or compass, Vikings navigated the seas. Nature was their partner and guide. This is an epic tale where spectacular wildlife meets the wild lives of Vikings.
Wednesday at 7 p.m.
It's the Movies for Grown-Ups Awards. For movies that speak to grown-up minds, join Career Achievement winner Shirley MacLaine.
Thank you very much.
And your host Martin Short when the star-studded Movies for Grown-Ups Awards with AARP the magazine comes to great performances.
Friday at 8 p.m. on KRWG-Public Media.
I have inflammatory arthritis, osteoarthritis, I have fibromyalgia.
If you're on chronic opioids, not only do we find they don't work as well on chronic pain, the risks start to mount.
You can look at the risks of opioids, but nothing is risk-free.
Correct. And to that, I have increasingly been using more natural products.
I'm Dr. Peter Salgo. Join us this week for Second Opinion.
Sunday at 1:30 p.m.
Let's take a look at our top stories. Last night, El Paso welcomed President Trump into town as he held one of his 2020 campaign rallies at the El Paso County Coliseum. President Trump is unhappy with what is going on in Capitol Hill days before a government funding deadline. And notorious drug kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Guzman has been found guilty on all charges for his activity in the Sinaloa cartel.
A new exhibit at the Western North Carolina Nature Center opens on Valentine's Day with their newest addition, red pandas. The red pandas have been at the exhibit for a few weeks. Their names are Phoenix and Leafa. Most of their diet consists of bamboo but can include fruit. Staff is working on getting the animals ready for visitors by getting them used to crowds.
I might have to take a trip because those pandas look really cool.
They're so cute.
Absolutely. Cool. So Christian, what's the next 5 days looking like?
Over the next 5 days, we'll see partly cloudy skies throughout most of the week. We'll also see highs varying in the 60s throughout the week. And finally, we'll see varying lows in the 30s to 50s. And in my opinion, it's definitely some weather for some light layers.
And that's all we have for you tonight. I'm Milan Contreras.
I'm Stephanie Medes.
I'm Christian Cerveño.
Good night.
Good night.
This news brief in Español is brought to you by Noticias 22, Spanish language news for southern New Mexico and West Texas. Noticias 22.
Bienvenidos a este breve informativo de Noticias 22, con ustedes Diana Castillo. El presidente de los Estados Unidos, Donald Trump, celebró su primer campaña presidencial en El Paso, Texas, ayer en el Coliseo. Miles de personas se congregaron en apoyo del presidente y otras para protestar. Durante el discurso, el presidente Trump no abordó sus comentarios anteriores que hizo con respecto a la inseguridad de El Paso. Muchos patrocinadores no duraron en opinar sobre el muro y la inmigración. Uva Belts dice que es importante tener inmigración, pero debe de mejorar la situación para las personas que desean entrar a el país. Durante la campaña de Trump, el ex representante de Texas, Beto O'Rourke, también organizó su propia campaña donde habló en contra del muro fronterizo. El juicio duró más de 2 meses y medio y hoy Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán del cartel de Sinaloa fue declarado culpable de 10 cargos penales federales. El Chapo se enfrenta a los cargos de participar en actividades criminales como distribución de Internacional de Drogas. Es posible que Guzmán reciba una sentencia de vida sin libertad condicional. Esto es todo por hoy para Noticias 22. Diana Castillo.